Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Rode Wireless Pro. So let's dive deep into it. So what the heck is this Pro? Basically, somebody took two and instead of calling it three, they're like, what if we call it Pro? So that's what it is. It's basically a dual audio wireless transmitter and recorder. So basically wireless go two. You have two of the transmitter side. Both of the transmitter itself can also act as a recorder, and then it transmits into it, and then you dump that into your video equipment, generally a camera. Now, why only two, not four, not eight? Is simply because stereo jack is the most common jack and it's stereo. So that's why we are stuck there. So that's why you will only see two transmitter, one receiver. Now, the biggest bang about this puppy is that it has 32-bit. Now, 32-bit is a very big game changer in audio industry. The reason for that is back in the old days, before 32-bit, is that we always have to set the gain. Now, gain is an analog thing that happens on a preamp level. You mess that part up, your file, digital file that is going to come out, that's garbage. You cannot fix it. Like, it is on an analog level, so we must adjust it properly. And that was half of the job of audio guys, like set the levels correctly. Of course, we had some analog suppression circuit, specifically we call analog limiters, that could temper the signal, and it didn't sound great, but at least it did not clip. So that was the old days of doing things. Somebody came up with the idea of mixing multiple analog to digital converter into one data stream, and then the 32-bit float era was born. Now in 32-bit float, you don't worry about gain. There is no gain. You're just like, bro, I don't even care. So that, and in terms of sample, it is 48 kilohertz sample. Now be mindful, I have tried to look for manual, I've looked for things, I could not found it. Rode released this device very weirdly. They announced it first, then people started to talk about it, like review samples started to went out. People did reviews surprisingly late, even though Rode already announced it and all that, which always like gives me a bad feeling about things. But and even on their website, there is no simple PDF you can just download, like it's not written yet. So I cannot guarantee or vouch for it that it only goes to 48 kilohertz, but my feeling is, gut feeling, yeah, it only goes to 48 kilohertz. It has internal memory, same as this puppy. Only difference is this puppy only goes to 4 gigabyte. This goes to 32 gigabyte. It's non-changeable, meaning you just buy 32. And is it good? Actually, yeah, compared to 4. Now, why don't they give micro SD card? There is a patent lock on it. Some other company has a patent on it. And the biggest pro reason for this, 32-bit, I am not that sure anymore, but timecode. This puppy has timecode. Now, timecode itself is just a thing. Anybody can do that. Heck, many of the new action cams support timecode. Now, are those timecode really high quality? Not really. The reason for that is you need a good oscillator. Now, oscillator can start from basic one, that is, watch, to temperature compensated oscilloscope, to ovenized oscillator, to atomic clock. That's how far it goes. So it's up to you. So you cannot just have a basic oscillator and say I have a professional timecode. So you need at least this level, which is temperature compensated, meaning each oscillator drifts based on how cold it is or how hot it is. If you have temperature sensor right there, it's like how hot or cold the oscillator itself is, the drift can be compensated. That's why you call temperature compensated. There is another data line. Oscillator is just minding its own business. Temperature is like, it's gonna drift like plus 10%, plus 2%. Like there is a compensation layer. So it's really good, and it can send that data over USB, as in your mobile phone if they accept it, and over audio. If your camera does not accept, like it does not have a jack that says timecode in, you can utilize headphone, basically microphone input. One channel can be timecode. It has charging case. Finally, this was the biggest headache. I basically last year took this puppy into a festival and I had to do interviews. It was a hassle to charge all of these things. Thankfully, they have case. However, surprisingly disappointing case is like they should have made it a bit bigger, because now you have so many accessories with this puppy that you have to carry two boxes. One box will be just this. Another box would be the lavalier microphones, the cables, the charge. It was like, this needs to be a bit bigger. This is like the smallest they could do, and be mindful, it literally looks like a third-party charging box. It does not have the panache that I was expecting, specifically after seeing DJI's attempt to it. So they have, thankfully everything has USB-C, which is nowadays common, and it has inbuilt microphone, meaning if exactly like this, chassis is exactly the same. Come on. Okay. Yep. So inbuilt microphone exact same, and audio signature was also exactly the same. It does have, however, like this has 3.5 mm jack, awesome, but this has 3.5 mm locking jack. Now locking jack is compulsory in a professional world. You're not gonna go into a professional system and say, "Oops, my mic pulled out." Yeah, your job is gonna be pulled out. So for that reason, all Sennheisers, all professional systems, DAT systems, most of them generally have a locking collar for that. Thankfully, this has it. Now I do not think this is a metal collar, but better than nothing. So that's good. And it has basically ability to be used with multiple things. For example, mobile phones, PCs, iOS devices, Android devices, camera, recorders, all of things. So it has a lot of range in terms of usability. So let's talk about audio. Now, audio, this is where things become unclear. I have been trying my best to find out what exactly is happening in 32-bit, because remember, 32-bit is not that magical. You can take a normal analog to digital converter from market, from many companies, and you can just look into it. Most of them are 32-bit, but they are linear 32-bit. You can send that signal into some mathematical calculator and convert it into float. It can be done, not a big deal. So how the heck you actually get that pro level analog to digital converter? Well, you use this route. This is from a Rhodes professional lineup. They are one microphone which is idiotically expensive, and they do not shut up about that they have quad layer. Most of the 32-bit true quality interface, like be it from sound devices, be it from Zoom, be it from Tascam, they generally have dual line, meaning two ADC takes care of the situation. So you have sound input which is varying. Then you have microphone capsule. It creates the analog signal. Now then the analog signal goes into what we call preamp stage. This is where you set the gain. But if you have two of them, you do not set the gain. You are like, one is cold, one is hot, the end, go home. So preamp, what it does is, if you set it sensitive, as in like hot, boosted, it's very awesome for mildly speaking things, meaning you're talking slowly, it will allow you to boost it up. Awesome, no problem. But here's the deal, if you set it high, anytime you speak even mild voice, it will clip. What does that mean? Meaning it will create signal that is so distorted that analog to digital converter would be like, I cannot make sense of this. I'm out. I cannot do anything. So to solve that physical limitation, they are like, hey, what if we have another, preamp that is bitless, that has a dedicated amplifier, analog to digital converter. Then we have another even colder. So that now you have four levels, and each four level is feeding to its own dedicated analog to digital converter. Then you have DSP, digital signal processor. It's filtering out perfect one and then giving you a 32-bit stream. Now this is pro level. This is what it has to be. Now does it need to be 4? Not necessarily. 2 is minimum. I have looked through their website, and any company that actually does that, they never shut up about it, that they have dual ADC. So I have doubts that they have true ADC or not, dual ADC. So I would not say it's like pro level. If you are expecting, oh, I'm gonna have like a very expensive boom microphone, it's common thing in studios that those are ludicrously expensive, very good dynamic range. You plug this puppy in, and this puppy could clip. It's like, even if you have a battery powered system for the main phantom power, you may still find the digitizer is not that good. It may not have multi analog to digital converter. So I would say keep your expectation low. Because now here's the deal, why the heck everybody who's testing is not finding that issue? Lavalier microphone itself has low dynamic range, meaning this microphone capsule is the first line. If it itself is clipping, it's not going to do much. And that's why we generally prefer big capsules. Like, I like big capsules. The bigger the capsule, the more sensitive it becomes and more tolerant it becomes of large noises. So it can actually has much larger dynamic range, almost sometimes 130 decibel, real world 130 decibels of dynamic range it can have. So lavalier microphones fundamentally does not go that well. So maybe that's the reason why the testing is like, everybody is saying it's good, but not like, whoa. It's good, but not whoa. And so I would urge you, if you are using it with lavalier, don't worry about it. If you are using it with something more oomfish, more like, shotgun mic setups and all that, you may find it lacking. So keep your dynamic range expectation parallel to lavalier microphones, not to like a studio grade system. So that's there. Onboard microphone is exactly the same. All audio testing literally feels like exactly what I hear every day. So it's the same. Thankfully, this is why we need competition. This has inbuilt memory. It has USB-C interface. So you're like, hey, I plug it, I extract the file. Rode is like, no, we're gonna make your life miserable. You have to download Rode Central app, convert the files, then extract it. Why? Thankfully, DJI came to the market and they were like, hey, we know we have memory. We know we are storing audio files. What if that audio files is directly in WAV file? So you don't worry too much about it. It's just like done. So thankfully in Rode Wireless Go Pro, they have fixed it. Now you get WAV file directly, meaning you connect it. You do not have to have any application. You do not have to do anything. You just plug it, bam, all the files shows up. You can copy it. You cannot cut it. You cannot delete it, but you can copy it. So that's there. Finally, it has 42 hours of recording. That's why I said like 4 gigabyte, not that good. It's like 6 hours. This puppy goes to 42 hours, meaning even if you are doing a run and gun and like, you know, lot of shoot you can do, like more than 1 day of recording continuously can be there. And every time you reach saturation, meaning it's full, it wipes out the last clip. So it's a really good recording capacity. If there was no patent lock, I would have wished for micro SD card, but 42, good. Now, audio over USB can be sent if you have an audio recorder that can accept it. I have not seen any camera, which is truly tragic given the fact that back in the days of 1990s, we used to have like mini disc player that used to have optical digital audio input. It was running on battery power. That should have been standard for all cameras, man. Like, why the heck like, for example, this converts my voice into digital signal, awesome. Digital signal goes to the transmitter, awesome. Then it gets converted again to analog, you lose quality there. Then analog conversion sends to the camera has to reconvert it, losing quality there. I'm like, why don't you just have an analog, basically direct digital input? There is one professional standard, but it's really garbage and like rarely used. And I'm like, dude, just use optical or just use USB. But unfortunately, we do not live in that useful world. We live in a weird world. So you can use USB over mobile phones or computer, but for cameras generally you have to use 3.5. But let's say you are planning to, like from day one you are planning, hey, I want that 32-bit, I'm happy with the dynamic range, I'm what all that, but I do not want to do all that conversion, like, you know, analog to digital, digital to analog, then analog to digital. I do not want to do that. And be mindful that levels that you're going to get on your camera will always be inferior, because this pipeline is only 24-bit. So you may be like, hey, I just want to take the best. And again, you may be in a place where you have a lot of RF interference. This may not be as reliable. So you're like, okay, from day one, I'm going to work on that. So what can you do? Well, you can still use this as a basically headphone receiver. You can receive the headphone. And if you're using USB, you can actually send audio through USB, receive headphone as a monitoring device. It can be done. So can't you do this with an older system? Yes, but this time they have realized a lot of people were actually doing that. So they're like boosted the capacity, meaning the preamps on this puppy is actually strong enough. It can drive some powerful headphones without too much hassle. That's a good, wise use. But what if you have a license of a very old software that does not support 32-bit float? I do not know which software, but some software do not support 32-bit float. Okay, what the hell you do? You install a Rode app and it converts it into 24-bit. Now be mindful. What if it's clipping? Well, it will auto adjust it, meaning if it clips, it brings it down. Now I do not know whether it's doing it on like whole file level. What is the highest peak? Drop it to 0, or like is it adjusting sample by sample? I do not know, but it will auto adjust it. That's what their manual said. So it's good, but I would say 32-bit part, keep it under like realistic expectation, and be mindful. If you put like a true, like this sort of circuit on a lavalier will clip before the circuit ever needs to shine. So it may be like, you know, horses for courses kind of scenario. Then we come to timecode. Now timecode is a pro level function. Like there are two types of people who need timecode and who are not professional. Again, that's a bit exaggerated, but you get the point. Like timecode is a pro level function. What's the use of it? Well, its primary use is syncing multiple sources. Now what can sources be? You can have multiple microphones, you can have multiple cameras. All these things have to be synced. So you need a clock circuit to do that. So we use timecode. I have made detailed, in-depth videos about those things. This is just like, I'm assuming you have already watched that. So it supports all the standard FPS. Now be mindful, if you open the FPS menu, you'll be like, hey, it has 23.98 frame per second, awesome. It has 24 frame per second, awesome. 25 frame per second, well, okay, less used, but okay. It has 29.97 dropped frame per second. Some cameras love that. Awesome. Some has 29.97 non-dropped frame. Awesome. It has 30 FPS. Awesome. But here's the deal. What about 60? Here's the deal. If you ever reach that point where your timecode does not go above that, you have to use multiples. Meaning, if you're shooting in weird FPS like 48 FPS, you will take 24. If you are shooting in 60 fps, you will take 30. You basically multiply by 2. If it's not cleanly multiplyable by 2 or 3, yeah, then you are like stuck. Generally it will be so. 2x is generally selected for 60 fps, so you choose 30 fps. That's one way of doing it. And be mindful, this is not Rhodes limitation. This is the limitation of SMPTE. SMPTE. Basically, the corporation, not even corporation, organization that built up the time code. They built it mostly for broadcasting industry. That industry generally does not cross this. So they're like, everything is sorted for that. And again, you can just double it. Basically, it will say 12 p.m. 12 a.m. 5 minutes, 30 seconds, frame 1, frame 1, frame 2, frame 2. That's how it does. So it's not that big of a deal. It does support linear timecode. Now you can send it through metadata layer if your camera has timecode input, or you can send it over audio, which majority of the people is going to use that. So that's an option here. And it does support jam syncing other devices. For example, you have only one receiver, right? The receiver is the timecode source. So that puppy is connected to your camera is getting it awesome. But what if you have camera 2 or camera 3? In those sort of scenario, you can use this, plug it to them, and then jam sync it, meaning it will scream the timecode signal. Camera will listen to that timecode signal and be like, okay, I got you. This is what the time is. Then you disconnect it, use it as usual. Now, this is what we call okay option, but not a recommended option. Professionals generally do not rely on that. They always have device that is dedicated timecode for this reason, because clocks that are in your camera, it's not, well, not high quality. Cameras drift a lot. For example, if you buy a basically Blackmagic camera, in 8 hours, it could drift by 1 to 2 frames. And by this means literally you can have 2 or 4 cameras and all of them start to drift. If you shoot it for, let's say, live shoots and all that, where it can be running for a very long time, all of them will drift. And if it goes for, like, let's say, cricket matches can go on for 9 to 10 hours, at that point in time, it's like, whoa, drift would be bad. So that's why jam syncing is good for burst shoots. Basically, you take 1, jam sync again, take 2, take 3, jam sync again, take 4. That's awesome. But one long set, yeah, that's not good, because again, clocks will start to drift. And that's why professional cameras do not even have time code. They have one step above, gen lock. Gen lock is basically, they discard their internal clock and they say, provide me the time clock. So you can connect it, physically connect everything, or you can just have like dedicated time code devices that are like very precise, very absolute, very synced, and then everything works. So be mindful, it does have time code, it does have the ability to jam sync time code, but it's not pro enough. That's why I said it's supposed to be named 3. They just named it, pro. Now, what do you do about timecode that is in the audio file? Basically, if I'm doing this, what it will do is like send one channel, 24-bit audio. If I'm using 2 microphones, it will create a stereo mix, almost useless. But it will create a timecode stream on another channel. In that channel, if I try to run it in Adobe is like, I do not care, man. I do not know what it is. It's just sound. But if you do that in DaVinci has this option, update timecode from audio track. It will read that audio signal as a digital signal and try to translate it. Once it figures it out, voila, now you have a metadata layer. And generally, that's why cinema cameras have timecode input. The metadata layer does not require conversion. It's like, it's there. That's why people actually use Adobe still. So this is more of a like amateur kind of requirement or a prosumer level requirement, whereas like, oh, because any professional camera actually has like a dedicated system where it's like, dude, I'm going to give you the metadata layer without requiring conversions. So what if you have to use not DaVinci Resolve? Well, then you can buy Tentacle Sync software, which has the best ability to convert basically any audio signal into a metadata layer, and then you can export it to whatever software you need to. Best software. I'm genuinely shocked why Rode has not released something equivalent to this, because you're gonna need it. So that's there. So this is the timecode part. It's good, but limiting, specifically because it does not have the ability to absorb timecode. It just yells out timecode. It does not eat the timecode. I will explain why that is such a big deal. So is it really pro? Well, reality is the 32-bit, even if assuming optimistically it has dual analog to digital converter, which is like really good, same level as like Zoom, Tascam and all that. It is limited by 48 kilohertz. Now, like, isn't like 44.1 kilohertz is enough? Yes, that's how audio CDs came to be. But here's the deal. We realized like 44.1 is like very sloppy. It's like FPS is not matching. So we upgraded it to 48 kilohertz. That's the DVD audio. Now, 48 kilohertz, we have left that. We left that puppy long ago. Nowadays, if you go into professional audio industry, most of the time they are recording at 192 kilohertz. Now like, oh, we cannot hear it. Again, it's not for you. It's for the software that's going to do the crunching on it. For that reason, everybody has just like, hey, use the most data that you can, collect. So you really do not want to be that person who's like, I am gonna give you a 48 kilohertz file, because that means the DAW that they are working on, digital workstation that they are working on, has to be like create a master file or convert your file. So for that reason, this 48 kilohertz is a limiting factor. I'm assuming that they can upgrade it, but chances is less. 192 kilohertz is like, this is how you can get DAT devices, they go up to that, or Sound Pro devices that go to 192 kilohertz. So assuming that 32-bit is truly multiple analog to digital converter, that bit depth, basically sampling rate is not high enough. So I'm given the fact that they are never yelling up, like, because they never shut up about we have quad analog to digital converter, and they are not even opening their mouth about this. I'm very sus that does it actually have dual 8 to, because again, 1 to 2 is the biggest difference. 2 to 4 is like, okay, it's just quality, but like 1 to 2 is the biggest difference. So not talking about that is like, press X for doubt. Non-replaceable battery is just lame. Like flat off a pro level, they will not even touch it. Why is that? This is another aspect. Why is that? Well, imagine it this way. Let's say you are a wedding shoot and bride and groom has been going on, things have been happening, everything's fine. It's 4-hour mark, your battery, poof, what the hell you do? Well, in professional system, you open the lid, swap the battery, you good. Here, you're gonna get a message in your system where it's like, hey, battery low. Okay, what the hell you gonna do? Go to the groom, put a battery USB power bank into his pockets, and then connect it somehow. That's the only thing you can do. So that's why professionals do not like that idea of like not having user replaceable battery. And on top of that, because these batteries are tiny, they degrade very quickly. Bigger the cell, the slower the degradation of capacity would be. So these things generally go poof after 2 years. As in, like, the battery life becomes exponentially bad. You will not go from, oh, it's 6 hour, used to give me 6 hour, now it gives 4 hour. It will be like 6 hour to 2 hour. That's how badly it could fall. So non-replaceable battery, and Rode does not have a dedicated plan where it's like, hey, you bought from us, no problem, warranty over, no problem, just send to us for a small fee. We're gonna swap the battery with professional a new one, and you enjoy. That will reduce e-waste, but they do not do that, and I do not like that. Genuinely not good. No touchscreen, which is genuinely, it's like, oh, we have created this mold and we will die with this mold. It's like, dude, you can change it. You can change it. Especially with the receiver end. I get like transmitter part, I get. Transmitter, they do not want. Receiver, you can change, man. Like, look at DJI. They realize receiver does not need to be size locked. These things needs to be as small as possible. Okay, we get it. Awesome. But what about this? This can be big. It can have a big screen and it can have a touch screen. So all the functions, like specifically that timecode function, yeah, FPS, you cannot change on body. You have to connect it with a mobile phone or do it with a computer, which is not acceptable. Professional devices, whenever you see any professional, why does it has so many knobs and buttons and all that? One primary function. You do not need to do hulululu to it. It's just like, oh, you want time code? Time code. You press the button. Time code. Okay, this. FPS, tuck, done, go home, sweet dreams. You do not want a device like, oh, I have to connect this, then do this, then do that. No. So for that reason, that's a really frustrating part. Like, you have to use apps. That's why I said, like, it should be called 3. It's not pro. And lack of timecode input is a very big deal, because the best thing if you do not have timecode input is that hope is that it has 2 modes, continuous and world clock. World clock is in like a real world time, as in like what's in your watcher. Basically, it will say like 6 p.m. not p.m. as in like 6:005. And then frame 1, frame 2, frame 4, it will keep going like that. Now you can set it to real world, assuming everything goes perfectly. Hopefully all roads will sync up. Real world, lol. That's why we have jam syncing in the first place. And that's why even professional timecode devices, which has oven based basically crystal oscillator, they also have the ability to accept timecode. They're like, hey, I can scream timecode, that's good, awesome, but I can listen to it also. Now it's like, why? Well, imagine it this way. You are shooting a panel and you have 4 or 5 people. Okay, let's say 5 people you have. Now you have to have 3 sets of Rode. Okay, you buy that, no problem. Now you have 2 cameras, no problem. Here's how the heck you sync all of them? You just hope that Rode is doing properly, and that's why professional system always have time input. So you can just jam sync one device to other devices. This can be like, okay, I'm humble enough that one would be number 1, I will listen to the number 1, and number 3 would be like, I will also listen to number 1. Everybody works, everything is awesome. But in this scenario, hope that everybody has set their clock to real clock, not continuous clock, which again, another aspect is that if you're not going to listen to it, that should not be an option in the software. It should always be real world, deal with it. That would be like a pseudo way of syncing every Rode wireless go to every other Rode wireless go to. Not great, but not terrible. But having that option, now you're always worried, hey, all three Rode receivers, transmitter receivers, they are working on the same thing? Again, they have wireless screamers inside them, as in like wirelessly screaming, and it is back and forth. So it can be done wirelessly, where they can listen to other Rode systems. So you can sync up as many as you need to. So not having that is a big problem. For professional, they're like, yeah, no, I'm not touching this. Just for that, I'm not touching this. And again, non-replaceable battery, not having 192 kilohertz, all that jazz. You get the point. So you can't sync multiple sources using multiple cameras also, you can't sync it. So it's really bad. And body design has not been polished. This design is not the most awesome, but it's also really elegant. It's like, I was expecting Rode to go, okay, this is good, I'm going to give you better. Because engineering rule is, thou shall build it first or thou shall build it better. Like, you do not have to be the first, but you have to be better. It's like, this box looks like somebody thought about it. Rode box looks like I bought the cheapest one from the Amazon, and just like, you have to have two boxes, by the way, because it has so much accessories that I have no idea why the heck primary box is so small. It should be bigger. And again, bigger also leads to bigger battery, which also leads to longer lifespan. As in, like, every few years, even that battery would be like, I no longer hold charge. Again, that's why, like, it's genuinely frustrating. So is it pro? No, I would say it's a Rode Wireless 3 masquerading as pro. Is it good for most people? More than good enough. But like, do not expect it to like, whoa, Rode has changed the game. I'm waiting for another device that to be launched very soon, DAT system. And again, they do professional level timecode. So let's see what happens with them. So this was my presentation on Rode Wireless Go 2, Go Pro. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.